Open World Chat is back after our summer hiatus. No more reruns. I'm one of your hosts, John Odom, and this week I was not part of the show. My co-host Jim Dandino spoke with writer Paul Cornell, who's done all kinds of stuff over the years, and his latest project is the AHOY Comics anthology Project CRYPTID. Jim talks to him about that. We talk about his other projects. Very fun interview. I'm very bummed I missed it. So here's Jim and Paul.
Paul, thank you so much for talking to us today. I've been enjoyed your work for quite some time now, and I saw your name attached to cryptozoology and AHOY, and I figured, this is going to go. I think this is going to go well, and I read it, and I was correct.
Thank you.
Indicated, in my opinion. Tell me a little bit about how this project came together for you.
Well, I was asked to pitch. I worked with AHOY before a couple of times on their wonderful Edgar Allan Poe series. And also I've got a series currently with them, Con and On.
Right.
And they sent out an invitation saying, have you got any cryptozoology stories? So I immediately went for the Mongolian deathworm because I knew there would be a chase for that it would be who got there first. And because who doesn't like a Mongolian deathworm? And yeah, I mean, they are easily the most popular and well-known cryptid in the world. And so what I really love about AHOY is that they take a theme like incredibly Edgar Allan Poe stories in comic form, but funny. And that, was successful enough to go for 3 seasons. And CRYPTID is a glorious idea, funny cryptozoology stories. And in the first issue, I've got one, Mark Russell's got one, and mine's with the wonderful PJ Holden, who I thought of immediately because he's really good at drawing monsters. And amongst many other things, he's very adaptable and he's funny, which is really helpful. Yes. And it's the usual AHOY quality product. Actually, there's stuff in the back. There's a serial that's going across loads of their publications by Grant Morrison. They make a little magazine, which is so nice these days. Sorry, I've talked and talked.
That's exactly what I'm hoping for here. Do you feel so? AHOY has been really hot lately, basically since its creation, with especially comedy stuff. Is there, when you're working on these AHOY books, is there a sense of kind of one-upsmanship? You're in a book with Grant Morrison and Mark Russell writing. These are obviously hitters, and these are folks who can really bring some comedy. Do you go back and edit your scripts and think to yourself, my God, I have to push. Well,
one does anyway. I mean, it's one doesn't bring anything but one's best game, especially in comedy. Goodness, because that's tough stuff. And but it helped that we had subject matter, and I was on a panel with the AHOY crew at San Diego, and that was, as you might imagine, the panel and the subsequent company dinner were very funny. And there was a sense of everybody trying to land their punchlines with the crowd, but the crowd really appreciated it. Yeah, and so it's nice to be amongst friends. Mark's a lovely chap, and I've only met Grant once in passing, but I hear only good stories. And so and they're a lovely company to work for. Tom Pear and our editor Sarah Litt, who was basically, this is Sarah's comic. She put together the crew.
Yeah,
I've had a thoroughly wonderful time with AHOY. They're also incredibly ethical, which these days amongst comics companies is not always a given.
Yes. I mean, I assume they would be. Tom's been around the block and certainly experienced the ups and downs of the comic industry. But it's nice to hear that they actually put their money where their mouth is on that.
Mm.
It's also got
And
a little bit of that kind of freewheeling bullpen style that is missing from most comics right now.
yeah,
They're so siloed and independent that there's no kind of continuity or a sense of culture, or they're
yeah.
corporate and all the life has been drained out of them.
I think that this is the nice thing about Ahoy. You have a certain expectation when you pick up an Ahoy comic, and that expectation is largely met. It's like picking up an issue of Mad magazine. There's almost a house sense of humor, very broadly, in that it's going to be dark, it's going to be quite sarcastic and cynical, and it's going to deal with the real world. And my little story in issue 1 is basically a buddy cop movie about a man and his Mongolian deathworm. And I honestly just wanted to get PJ to draw as many cryptids as possible. So it's largely around the activities of the LAPD cryptozoology unit. You may not believe in them, but they protect you. And it's so they've got lots of cryptids working for them. And I had an absolute ball. And I hope that PJ is getting more and more exposure all the time. He's often in 2000 AD, but he's now often in DC Comics as well, which is very good for him.
Well, I wanted to talk to you about PJ's art specifically, because one of the things that I found as somebody who's been reading specifically humor comics for a long time, timing comedy in comic books is so hard.
It is.
You and PJ nail it. The setup punchline, and often it's a like a newspaper strip sensibility, right? So can you talk to me a little bit about how you structured the jokes and how you worked with PJ to make sure that everything landed?
Yeah, I mean, there's I should say that I only had to he does very quick, very rough layouts and gets your opinion on those before he goes to pencils. And those in this case were so precise in delivery that I only had to I asked him to move one of the cryptids around on its axis by 90 degrees, and that was it, because the storytelling was so clear. But I think that it's how does one talk about the placing of punchlines? I think it's about the page turn. It's about making sure that the rhythm of the page turn doesn't spoil the gag, and it's about the cuts. I think we have in our head a lot these days the rhythm of fake documentary TV comedy shows.
Mm-hmm.
And that's often in our heads as writers, whether or not that's what we're writing. And that's true here. I mean, this is a narrated story.
Yep.
But the cuts do feel a little like that Community or no, Community isn't
The
I
Office.
can't remember if or Parks and Rec.
Right.
That we feel we're being addressed. And I think that actually gives a certain new weight to comedy in comics.
Mm-hmm.
It forms that kind of TV show kind of forms somehow a mental bridge between the classic shaped sitcom and what a comic book can do. I'm making this up as I go along. I've never had these thoughts before. Thank you for dragging these out of me. They may be rubbish.
I hadn't noticed the narration and the kind of mockumentary setup until you pointed it out, but it makes perfect sense, and it does feel the narration adds a layer of abstraction that heightens the absurdity. And in a situation where you're talking about cryptids, right, where you're talking about a Mongolian death worm, I think everything you can do to elevate the absurdity is very helpful.
Well, the lovely thing about comedy is that the only point is to make the audience laugh. You don't necessarily have to establish a real or even real seeming world.
Mm-hmm.
And like our hero just is addressing the audience at one point, he's just talking straight out the comic at us. And I doubt the audience think about that. I'm not entirely sure I thought about that.
Right.
But it's just something that wouldn't happen as a rule in in inverted commas serious comic.
Right.
And I'm very much a love of the British children's comic tradition of the 1970s, the full-on Leo Baxendale Bash Street Kids, where reality is warped to the extreme. And comics I grew up with, like Sparky, were very punky, very breaking what comics could do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I still like comics where you can have a speech balloon coming in from off the side of the panel,
right,
with a little arrow pointing to it saying "reader's voice," and like you can hear another reader talking to you about what's on the page.
Yeah.
And I believe I actually do that in my second story for AHOY, which for Project Cryptid, which isn't going to be in this season because of the artist is having some difficulties.
Okay.
But the artist is a classic British comedy comics artist. And so I get to use, and I better not say who it is or what the subject matter is, because that's spoilers. Mm-hmm. But I get to use people making expressions like "ooh yeah" and "irk," and
you get to live your dream. You get to
have
a conversation with 8-year-old you.
Yeah,
about
very much so.
The stuff that you've liked ever since then.
Yeah,
it's great. So the Mongolian death worm.
Yes,
we have a conversation about this.
It is real.
I'm certain it is. Although Mongolia being as sparse as it is, it's understandable that it hasn't been witnessed. What was the draw? Tell me about your history with the Mongolian death worm.
Well, I'm a Fortean, and so I've been reading about cryptids kind of all my life. And the Mongolian death worm is just the most fun. It's just such a strange bunch of stuff. There's only a handful of references to it, and they're sort of at the Marco Polo level of Traveller's Tales. And the fact that it's meant to kill people with electricity is just so bizarre that it fires. It's a dog-sized worm that fires lightning, and it's kind of like I'm not sure how you evolve the ability. You fire a little bit of lightning that works, and so that's selected for, or
is it maybe like an electric eel, or?
Well, yeah, actually, there is the electric eel, I guess. Yeah, so and maybe some traveler encountered an electric eel, and didn't know that was a sea creature. I don't know, but
yeah. The notorious inland eel population.
Yes, they're a threatened species because no water, and it's they are vanishing, but minute by minute.
Habitat non-existence.
Yes.
Yeah. So, a lot of personality in a little worm, though.
Yeah.
Was that? Did you feel like you had to personalize the worm, or did you come into it planning to personalize the with the worm as a prop?
I love being a podcast where one can ask the question, were you planning to personalize the worm? And yeah, I mean, it's down to PJ actually. I wasn't sure how characterful the worm was going to be, but he managed to give the worm a lot of character. And with something that's just a tube with no eyes, the his ability to conjure up a mournfulness. I think my panel descriptions were kind of like, well, it's a long shot, but see if you can, if you can get there.
Make him look sad.
Yes.
That works.
Yeah, it does.
I also I appreciate your restraint. There's only one cryptocurrency joke in here.
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be one.
There has to be one, but I feel like if it were me, it would have been the whole damn thing. Right?
Well, perhaps some other author has in the series will turn out to have done that.
Fingers crossed.
Mhm.
Lord knows there are few people more deserving. Yeah, tell me more about what you got going on.
Well, I got I'm doing rather well out of a serial on my Substack. I'm doing a serialized sequel to my Witches of Lichford books,
Ooh,
and it's got a lot of people are paying to read it, which is terrific. And I have to thus write a new chapter for every Thursday of the month, apart from if there's a fifth Thursday, I don't do it on the fifth Thursday.
right.
But and it's been a lovely discipline, and I've been really enjoying it. And it feels like actually a luxurious way to write a story, in that I get a week to think about the next bit.
Yeah.
Um, and if you think about it that way round, instead of oh no, I'm on a treadmill and I'm approaching the edge continually,
Right.
but no, I'm finding it great fun, and the
Tell me,
readers seem to be appreciating it.
tell me about how folks engage with that, because that's got to be, you mentioned that's a different way of kind of
Oh,
framing your writing process, but it's also a different way of consuming.
oh
Uh,
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got lots of subscribers to my Friday newsletter on Substack, and I just thought one day, if I did a paid level, what could I do for people? And I thought give them some continuing fiction, and my existing audience seemed to have embraced it heartily. So it's wonderful to see. And apart from that, I'm doing Con and On for Ahoy, which is really satisfying. 30 years in the life of more than 30, 40 years in the life of a big comics convention. And it's like a Robert Altman movie, a cast that ages, and we leap forward 8 years or so every issue,
mhm.
and of professionals and fans, and how the industry has changed. And it's satirical. It's about the awfulnesses of the comics industry.
Right.
And but there's also a lot of love and a lot of the romance of the big conventions in there as well. And I've been really enjoying getting to tell that story. And I've just signed a new contract this week for an unnamed company for an unnamed new creator-owned book. So that's pleasing.
Unnamed, anything you can give us on it, or is it just to keep
No,
an eye out?
but it's creator-owned, so
Yeah.
that's rather groovy. And
So
comics wise,
hang on, I want to
oh,
go back to Conan because
mhm.
it's weird. I was listening to a lot of Death Clock in the car today for Metalocalypse, and thinking about how how all of the folks in metal were being directly mocked and criticized by that show, and simultaneously adored it. They would get guest stars all the time that they were continually making fun of. This feels like the kind of book that you get approached in Artist Alley at a convention by people who are being made fun of in the book, saying, "Oh my God, I loved it."
Well,
I haven't seen that.
I think it's important to say we don't make fun of the fans. We're
No.
making fun of the pros.
Right.
And it's in fact, one of the fans turns out to be kind of the Val Molson turns out to be the hero of the whole thing, really. And it's we're making fun of types of prose in which I'm included. I actually put myself in the book in issue 4, kind of to, because this is full of real anecdotes of stuff that's happened to me at comics conventions and happened to my friends.
Right.
And I thought there's an anecdote in here that it might as well just be, because it really happened to me, so it might as well just be me. And no, I mean, we have 3 of the first wave of British comic creators in the States back in the 90s. And they are a cosmic explorer, a drunken wild man, and a very dapper man in a suit and tie. And I think that covers everyone. I don't think I've left out any British comic creators there.
Yeah. No, and I know exactly who.
Well, you say that, but I think I could name about 7 of each.
I'm thinking 3 of each. Yeah, I'm thinking
yeah.
I can picture 3 of each. The weirdly enough, it's the drunken one who I'm only getting to 2 on. So you know.
But no, so I think one of the things that makes that comic fun is that the very last thing I do before at the end of the lettering draft, before it goes to press, is I write a DVD commentary in captions from a future historian, giving DVD commentary notes all the way through. That gives it a level of but she's basically the voice on the commentary. I have 2, for instance, I have 2 comics dealers who in every issue are looking at each other going, this is my last year here. And the commentary will just say, it was not their last year. And it's there's an awful lot about the history of misogyny in the industry, and and there's an ability to have a scathing distance that commentary gives me, which is very nice.
Yeah.
There's a caption at one point which says there's still a statue up of him up in the company's foyer. And
okay, we're not going to say it out loud. Don't worry.
I actually don't think there is a statue of anybody up in any company's foyer. If there is, I'm a little worried now. But
right, the one I'm thinking of, that company has since moved, so statues probably came down. This sounds like
not meant to be one individual. That's terrifyingly many individuals.
Yep. This sounds like there's a director's cut hardcover coming.
There's a collected edition coming in spring, but it's. I'm sure we'll prepare some extras, as is the AHOY way.
Right. So what else? What else do we got? What else is fun happening?
Oh, I've got a SF novel out there, where we're shopping it around publishers. This is why I finally wrote my big space book.
Mm-hmm.
And sorry,
hard or soft sci-fi?
Probably hard to say, really. A bit of an adventure, but with some serious stuff.
Okay.
There's some hard science in there, but it's not galloping.
Yeah.
But
so culture-ish.
Yeah, if the culture was written by Ian Fleming.
Okay.
But yeah, and I've what else is? Oh yeah, next Saturday I've got the novelization of the comic Secret Invasion coming out. I wrote the novelization for Titan.
Oh wow.
That was a really good time. It's a novelization of the original Maxi series,
right,
plus a bit of all the different spin-off mini-series, formed into one solid, coherent story with an ending. And Brian Michael Bendis actually really provided a lovely spine for that. It does make a lot of sense as a single story.
So, you know, I tried watching the show, and one of the things I noticed about the show is how of a specific time the comic was.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what's it like going back to that?
Well,
And,
I don't. I mean, I set it now, but that
right.
which meant a few changes. But the
But the general
although
vibe was so specifically like post 9/11.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I say now, but it's the Marvel universe of that time.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's all the characters they use then. I had fun with things like the sections from Thor's point of view are in the rhythm of Beowulf, and it even begins with listen, why, like Beowulf does, and I'm so many Easter eggs. My editor Daniel Carpenter was also an enormous Marvel fan, and so every now and then one of his notes would go, "Could we just fit an extra Easter egg in here? Could this be something deep continuity Marvel specific?" And so we've peppered Easter eggs, and it's really been. We go quite a little bit after the end of the miniseries in order to reach a conclusion,
Well, and
and I'm really proud of it.
like you were in the middle of it too at the time.
Uh-huh. And I get to revisit them. I've got to write new dialogue for Pete Wisdom and Phasier, and
Oh my God,
it's
what was it? So like, were you, did it feel like correcting old wrongs, or was it more like visiting old friends?
we're visiting old friends. I mean, I miss Pete Wisdom terribly,
Yeah.
um, and I'm very proud that Phasier's continued to have a life of her own in the comics, and uh, it was just nice to go back and cover that ground again, and uh, be able to, do it from a different angle and add new bits.
Yeah.
And they absolutely knew I was going to do that. I mean, that's kind of one of the reasons I was asked to do this.
Really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's awesome. Um, what did you fill in there that like what yeah, what did you fill in the story that you were most excited about?
Oh, there are lots of through lines that Bendis indicates, but doesn't have space to fully go into.
Yeah.
Hawkeye, Mayor, and Mockingbird um, get the space for us to have a proper conversation about how Clint is with one person, then discovers his previous girlfriend is still alive. Then she's a Skrull. Then she's really still alive. And I do bring Maya's point of view into all that,
Okay.
and because she gets kind of there's not room to do that, but there's room to do everything in a novel, and we there's lots about Tony's journey, about how tough this all is on Peter Parker, um, about Jan, and how she feels about the reveal about Henry.
Right.
It's there's just a ton of stuff in here, and I had the time of my life. I really did. There's I'm revisiting some of the old minis, like the Hercules Secret Invasion stuff is brilliant.
Yeah.
And
That was when he was Thor? Oh my God.
no, that's when he was the Incredible Hercules, when he was he'd taken over the Hulk book, and
Yes.
he and the God Squad went after the Skrull gods,
Yes.
and
Oh my God.
and the Black Panther stuff is so hardcore. That's a proper war book at that point, and Yeah, so it's wonderful to be able to. And Jarvis, Scroll Jarvis, my
Yep.
favorite.
Yep.
Because the scrolls take on the emotions and the memories of the character of the people they're copying.
Right.
I've I do have chapters from Scroll Jarvis's point of view, and he's like, "Oh dear, I do wish these humans would just see sense and get off the dashed planet. I mean, it'd be a lot tidier." And it's he's my favorite character actually. He pops up far too often because I enjoy him too much.
It was, it's such a weirdly underrated period in Marvel, in the broader Marvel canon, and you were a huge part of it. And I'm really glad that you got a chance to come back to it and fill it in a little bit more. And I'm excited to read that.
Oh, thank you. I've had a wonderful time with it.
Paul, thank you so much. Where can folks find you online? How can folks subscribe to your Substack?
If people look on paulcornell.com, they'll find everything, and just look for Paul Cornell Substack.
Beautiful. Paul, thank you very much. Project Cryptid is coming out soon. Please go read it. It's outstanding.